So what I am going to do is a quick recap of the different talks for today. Just some action items that I thought about. Hopefully you have your own list from this, but I just wanted to do this as sort of a wrap up. The first one, the keynote from Andy about ATT&CK, is start planning for an assessment using ATT&CK. Right? Use it as a gap analysis. If you can't afford some third-party analysis to do that, do an internal one. The Raci Charts, use Raci Charts for you to basically look for gaps in your coverage, of your technology coverage. I think that's really, and I'm trying to pull out this sort of the elements and specific things of what this, what this talk was. There's one thing that I suggest you do based on the stuff that Nathan was talking about is use these Raci Charts in order to look for gaps in coverage as you start to build out your use cases. In terms of the use case development to drive maturity, I think that one thing that when I listened to that talk, I was like, I strive to do this and I hope more people do. Look for ways to just tune out the noise. Even if it's temporary, look for opportunities to be able to get more signal and less noise in what you're actually working for. From the tool taxonomy that I did earlier, suggest that you compare your deployments to the taxonomy. Look for gaps there. And then also, as you're looking through that taxonomy, if you have things that you would suggest to change in that, I'd be happy to hear it. From Chris's talk on the mental models, basically my takeaway from that is figure out how to minimize your time staring at that blank toolbar. And how do you do that? You do that by having a plan for what you're going to do when you get to that blank toolbar, right? And he gave these sort of like two things. You search for something specific, or you do broad searches and then narrow down. Have a plan for how you're actually going to approach that. From the cloud SecOps, I think the idea for that is look and learn everything that you can about the cloud infrastructure that you're using, and then look for ways to integrate into your DevOps sequence for actually instrumenting that with the cloud security capability that's baked into it. And then from John's talk on the Virtuous Cycles, the idea of autonomy, mastery, and purpose, right? And then the idea of skills, empowerment, creativity, and growth, and how these cycles interact with one another is very important for you to look for ways to enhance your automation and efficiency through metrics. And I think that these sort of like notions of this is my cycle, this is what I do on the daily, this is what I do on the weekly, this is what I do on the monthly, this is what I do on the yearly, and that is an attempt to incrementally move forward and to make sure that people are of the same mind in terms of growth is really the way that you can make things better. And that's what we're largely going for, is this sort of incrementally moving toward better. So I just wanted to do a quick recap on some action items from today. I actually just posted this, so you can go to the 2019 SOC items. Manny's talk, the how to disrupt an advanced cyber adversary. The focus that you should apply is on network awareness, cyber hygiene, and proper device configuration. And I think that if you think about those things, it'll definitely be substantial value to you. Guillaume's talk on the breach, attack, OS query. The thing that, and he had some phenomenal examples in there, but the thing that made me think was whatever tool you decide to actually bring to your endpoints in order to look at information, you still need to learn the things that make that good granular difference of what's okay and what's abnormal. And there were some great examples, and there was a lot of reference to what was out there in the community. But that notion of I am going to commit to learn those things is really what was important to me out of that one. In terms of how to adjust to this sort of ever-growing landscape, the takeaway from Kevin's talk is just tell a good story about your SOC and your internal collaborators, and make sure that you involve them in that good story. Make sure that you're telling a good story in that. From Devian's talk, my action item takeaway is make people disappear, right? I mean, it actually, make people disappear and think about how the physical actually matters to you, right? If you can make people disappear, then at least in a sort of theatrical manner, then you actually can show how the physical matters, and I think that that's a fantastic thing to take away from that. How to literally think like an attacker to become a better defender. My takeaway from that is think, right? This is like that old IBM placard that used to be out there, all caps, think. It's a shame that those signs aren't as prevalent as they once were, right? And if you are really diligent in your thinking, you'll also have some sort of metacognition in terms of how you think and apply that discipline to yourself. And then if you feel like you're fairly good at it, help others to think in that way. In terms of arming SecOps with a special forces targeting process, the takeaway action item for me from that was advance your thinking using intelligence. And this is extracting information out of what's available to you for everything that you see. And make sure that you have some sort of methodology and some sort of process and some sort of program inside of your environment. And there are a number of examples that are out there, and we got a chance to see one, but it's the idea of extracting that intelligence and applying it to things that you do after that. The case for building your own SOC automations, the takeaway was, for me, automate good actions, right? And identify the things that you already have that can be automated, or identify new things that you want, and realize that the tools are not required. This is you reflecting upon what you want to do. And Nate went through and talked about this, but he chose a thing in order to demonstrate how to automate that away. And making that coherent and intentional choice is really what's important about the automation aspect, not the tool, right? And that's really, for me, a very critical takeaway from that. The rapid recognition and response to rogues, for me, the takeaway, and you've heard it before, know your network, right? And the caveat, as much as you can, because the reality is you won't ever truly know your network. So this is as much as I can, I will continually expand upon that and then have that opportunity for rapid response to this. And then the tales for disappointingly successful pen tests. The idea for that, for me, is on the one hand to train your weakness, and from that to basically grow your capability and have a way that you can expand from that weakness in order to show that that weakness requires attention and that you will actually make your organization better because of those weaknesses. And that's the whole reason why we do pen tests. That's the whole reason why we actually spend the time and the effort and the energy to go and break things and break the technology, is to make people aware of that and get decision makers compelled in order to actually do something about it, because that takes a tremendous amount of effort in order to actually make that happen.